Roll call. Katie?
Roa?
Aye.
Donahue?
Aye.
Battaglia?
Aye.
Mangelo Bittner?
Here.
Stearns?
Here. If you're able, please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If you have a cell phone, iPad, iWatch, if you would mind muting it, I'd appreciate that. And I will try to remind you to turn your cell phone on after the meeting. Ready? Meeting notices, Katie.
On July 17th, 2019, executive session was held to discuss real estate and litigation. On August 7th, 2019, executive session was held to discuss real estate.
If I could have approval of the minutes for July 7th, or motion to approve the
So
minutes.
moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Second. Roll call.
Roa?
Aye.
Donahue?
Aye.
Battaglia?
Aye.
Mangelo Bittner?
Aye.
Stearns?
All right. Andy, do we have anyone signed up to speak?
Yes, Your Honor. Jason Ramsey, resident of 266 Randolph Street. Council, on your packet under communication to council, letter 6B is a letter from Jason. Do you want to speak now, Jason, in terms of? So in this, I'll just explain, right? So this is generally a public comment session that you can comment on items on the agenda. Under communication to council, council will read and publicly read aloud the letter, or Katie will actually. But if you want to make remarks now about the issue or anything beyond the letter, you can do that now if you're inclined.
As long as the letter's being read, I just have a very brief remark that I'd like to make, if that's okay.
Sure. Why don't you go ahead and do that now? If you just come up and give us your name and address, we know
Okay.
you're a city resident. Appreciate it.
Hi, my name's Jason Ramsey, 266 Randolph Street, Meadville. I just wanted to say, Honorable Mayor, members of council, other participants and guests, that I, before my communication is read to council, I appreciate being provided time to be heard regarding the imminent paving of Highland Avenue and being put on the agenda last minute like this. I'm also grateful to bring my son along. He has a big interest in transportation and city planning, and often remarks to me how a road should be configured or zoning could be changed or mass transit could be useful. I think it's the computer games he plays where he's always solving traffic problems, but I'm trying to give him the opportunity to apply those skills to real world scenarios and help him understand far earlier than I did how important it is to be involved in your community. Thanks, that's all I had to say to you guys, apart from the letter, so thank you for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. And in a few years, you can come and put an application, and we may be doing some hiring on some design. I'm glad you're here today. With that, Andy, manager's report.
Yes, Your Honor, I just have a number of items to update council and the public on. First, I'm going to turn it over to Gary Johnson for an update on HP Way Park, just sort of status of construction.
So everything that the contractor is to do other than the pavilion has been installed. So the basketball court's in, the paving's done, all the sidewalk landscaping is in. We anticipate the pavilion to be in later this week. After that, then city crews will come in with there's a few signs that would need to be put up. The boulder will be put back, the old boulder with the plaque on it, if you'll recall, will be put back. And then we're having a new identification sign, the green and the gold leaf lettering sign. We haven't had to put a new one together. The old one was pretty ratty, so we're having a new one built. And we will be putting that in after that's completed. So other than that, I mean, people have been using the basketball court. It's okay to use.
Gets used constantly.
Yeah.
Or just about. There's somebody there all the time. And same with the playground. Of course, my sons, when they recommended we put in a water fountain, which they said was too late now, and I said I had already suggested that. They said, could you put a pop machine in? And I don't know if that's something we could do or not, or a candy machine or something. It would get used. I
I'm
don't
not
know.
sure what electric might be there right now as far as infrastructure, but something we could look at maybe going into the new year.
Why do we not have a water pump?
It just wasn't included from the beginning.
Oh,
There was one there before and they had
Yeah.
capped it off.
it doesn't seem like much of a project.
Yeah, we just need to find the infrastructure for it.
You volunteer?
Hmm?
You gonna put that in?
Well, I don't know if you can. I know it didn't. I know it isn't a very big deal. I put a lot of them in.
So, Gary, if you would, can you just give us kind of a little bit of background or something about the finances on it, how much grant money was used and how much we matched, and just a little bit of a history if you
The
put me
total
on the
project,
spot. But
sure, the total project cost was a little bit over $400,000. Half of that was paid for with DCNR money. about, and this is just the phase 2, that doesn't include the original playground, which was another, I want to say $75,000 or $80,000. But their MAWA money was about $95,000. And then the city made up the rest of the money along with some county money as well. So, but the overall project is about $400,000 with half funded by the city.
Okay. Something I'd like to suggest, I mean, that's a pretty big project, and I don't know if you guys have driven by since it's been done. It looks really nice. And I'd like to have a ribbon cutting ceremony for that. And what I'd like to do is to notify the neighbors, because they're the ones that are going to be using that area. I don't know if we can maybe ask the Tribune or however you want to do it, but you know, we want to make sure everybody has an opportunity. And so when that final time comes, if somebody could just set a date for a ribbon cutting, to recognize all the agencies and the governmental money that went into it.
Absolutely.
Your Honor, I think Gary and I discussed that actually earlier this afternoon. We thought maybe early October for the ribbon cutting, which would get final pieces done in the next few weeks and final sign off by DCNR, and then we can do a formal ceremony.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll work on that.
Maybe we can do it towards the evening, because school will be in, and you know, it'd be nice to see the youth using it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Chestnut Street, the block of Chestnut Street between Water and Market Street has been closed since last Thursday, I believe. It was earlier in that week when we had done the milling in the first base course of paving, when a void had opened, was discovered. Found that our 24-inch storm line was the source of that. Long ago, it appeared that there had been a water line placed through our stormwater line that just took, we think it might have been even in the 80s, so it took quite a long time for the damage to occur and the undermining to finally give way. But it turned out to be a very complicated project, in that there's an 8-inch gas line in the street. There were 2 abandoned gas lines. It took us a long time to determine that they were in fact abandoned gas lines. They were full of water that then had to be pumped out and treated as hazardous waste and coordinated with National Fuel. And we actually have a contractor working on the excavation, the placement of the pipe, and the backfill. Today's weather has delayed us, but we're certainly at this point, we're hopeful by tomorrow that the pipe replacement is done, and then we'll have to schedule the final paving on Chestnut Street.
That terracotta storm drain there, does that end at Mill Run there?
It does, yes.
That's
yeah.
why it's so low?
Yeah, and in fact, we had to, and we're actually lowering it a little bit because.
Well, I noticed the water lines were real low, so I figured that must run underneath the run.
Yes.
How about, is there a sanitary sewer down there?
There is, it's on the other half of on the other southern side of the street that isn't directly impacted by our cut, but our stormwater line actually goes beneath the water lines.
Okay.
It empties into Mill Run at the culvert there on Chestnut Street.
Everything was pretty deep.
Yes.
I figured they must have arranged that to be run underneath the Mill Run.
It doesn't run, it empties into Mill Run at that location.
The water line must go underneath it, because I never even saw them, they got to that.
The water line was on top, well, it was through our pipe, actually.
Oh, well, the main? No.
It was a
Or was that a
lateral. It was a
service
lateral.
Yeah, I saw a service line kind of, they were pretty deep.
Yeah. So it was a service line that had been placed through our stormwater line long ago, somehow.
So how was the repairs funded by? Was that through the stormwater or
This
just?
will be coming from the stormwater fund. We'll have some discussions with the water authority in terms of maybe sharing costs because of the source of the damage. We focus on getting it fixed later, and we'll have discussions later with the water authority. On Wednesday, September 11th, of course, we're all familiar with September 11th history. The fire department is actually working with some partners to hold a brief memorial observance on Wednesday, September 11th at 8:30 at the fire station. A few public safety partners might be participating. Mayor, I reached out to you potentially or about participating in that event. I'm sure we'll share more details as it gets closer, but working on a brief memorial observance ceremony for the Wednesday 9/11. Council, you'll also recall from headlines in the paper and communication from me about the early on Saturday morning, August 10th, was sort of a street brawl in front of Chestnut Street Pub and Grill in that same block of Chestnut Street. I met the following, of which damage was done to a storefront, Taro Bean Roasting Company. Two arrests, at least 2 arrests have been made since that event. The following following Tuesday morning, I met with the Meadville Independent Business Alliance and concerned business and property owners about safety and security down there. Chief Totten and Assistant Chief Stefanucci and I actually met with the bar owner. I think that was on the following Monday morning. Anyhow, staff continues to work not only in communication with the PLCV, but the Pennsylvania State Police Bureau of Liquor Control Enforcement, which is the enforcement side of liquor law, and legal counsel to continue to evaluate any enforcement options there. Just want public to know that we're taking those concerns seriously and following up, and as there's information to report to council, I'll do that.
And is the PLCB on board with this?
I think Gary had some communication today. We have a meeting scheduled for next Thursday with the enforcement side from the Pennsylvania State Police, so we're getting that communication in line.
Has the liquor license been transferred from the sale in June? Or don't you guys have that information yet?
We don't have that information yet.
Okay.
Council is also aware that probably 2 or 3 weeks ago now, I think it was just prior to our last meeting actually, that there had been a $2 million grant award to the Economic Progress Alliance for the French Creek Heritage and Learning Center and Corridor project. You're aware also that we had supported an application to the county that the county submitted to the Department of Community and Economic Development Multimodal Transportation Fund program for a side path along Bessemer Street. And just yesterday, city staff met with the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources to discuss future phases of that project. You'll recall that the funding that we had secured for Bicentennial Park, we actually moved up to HP Way Park to complete that project. And so we had the opportunity to discuss with DCNR the importance of that project and what other fundable activities in the corridor. And so as a result of that, we will likely resubmit an application early next year before April to DCNR again for Bicentennial Park improvements that were originally planned and now sort of part of this larger corridor project. So we look forward to that. Thursday, August 29th, so that's next Thursday, is the Front Porch Forum, which is sort of the term given for an educational and outreach session by the Crawford County Planning Commission on the countywide housing plan. And so on Thursday the 29th at 6 p.m. in the Public Safety Building on Pine Street will be a public session on that plan. I emailed out to council a specific Meadville, Central Crawford region portion of that study, and I encourage.
How many people can that building accommodate, anybody know? I'm gonna imagine there's a lot of interest.
Yeah, there's probably, their largest room is about this size, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit wider, so about this size. I think it's maybe planned as an open house style. I don't know the exact style of the event, but there will probably be stations of information and feedback with planning commission staff and probably their consultants that will be there. There's quite a bit of data in that plan, and I think it's an interesting read, sort of on this.
So deep read.
Yeah, yep.
It's pretty heavy reading.
It is. Council Donna, you remind me, the French Creek Council of Governments on September 14th is holding a tire recycling event at the Crawford County Fairgrounds. We've typically been doing these every other year, and this is the year. And the project was actually recently funded by the Crawford Heritage Foundation with some dollars to help support that and defray costs, and then a grant to DEP, grant application to DEP. But that'll be Saturday, September 14th from 8 a.m. to noon, and residents can report to Gate 1, I believe is how we have them enter.
It's all Crawford County too, it's not just.
Yep, it's all Crawford County, not just city residents, and there is what's our $2 per tire fee
Costs
this year.
that much for us to get rid of them now.
Yes, yep.
Plus more than that.
Yeah, because we have to subsidize it with the grant and the funds from the Crawford
Sean,
Heritage Foundation.
studded winter tires, you take them too?
Yeah, they'll take them.
Yep.
Just so they're not on a rim. They can't be
Yeah.
on a rim.
Okay.
You give them to the round.
No tractor trailer tires either, so essentially passenger and light truck tires, I believe.
Yeah, I go up with the truck in the morning with one of these tires.
Okay.
Don't tell them.
I only get so many in the trust.
And lastly, Your Honor, actually, so storm cleanup, right? We've had a number of storms from frankly, late last week through the weekend, even on the one about an hour ago. But the one that was most impactful was Sunday evening, where I believe we ended up having 18 trees in the public right-of-way. There were certainly more private trees all over town that were impacted, but we had 18 trees that our public works crews responded to and cleared from the public right-of-way. So my thanks goes out to not only the fire department, actually all of the fire department, police department, particularly the public works crews, for their not only cleanup there, but it required a lot of coordination with Pedelec in particular and the other utilities to make sure that they could do that work safely and that we could either get trees out of the way so that they could repair lines or they could de-energize lines and then we could remove trees. I believe any closures are open now at this point. And one of the requests that we've had is from private residents have called. A lot of them have a lot of excess debris that they weren't expecting. We're discussing how we might be able to accommodate that if we could receive for a period of time at the Public Works garage or at the incinerator site, how we might provide that to residents. So I encourage residents to either look at our city Facebook page for information on that, or we'll also issue a press release if we can coordinate that. So we're evaluating that internally.
When do you think you're gonna have an answer for that?
We're working on it as best I can tell you.
That's probably the biggest complaint I had this week.
Right.
Was they didn't know what to do with that stuff.
Right.
And the college has a area, don't they, up off of Baldwin Street?
They've got a composting area, but they're not prepared to take limbs and
Okay.
woody debris, I don't believe.
I think that'd be really helpful for the residents that don't have the ability to get rid of the limbs. I mean, to me, that's just as important as cleanup day.
Andy, were the APs involved?
I'm sure they were, yeah. They were definitely deployed in many locations for, especially in the initial, until we could get barricades up. It took several hours to deploy barricades in that many locations and to control traffic and intersections. So thank you. That's another thank you to our APs.
Yes, they did a phenomenal job.
And so paving schedule, we're doing regular updates, daily updates, sometimes twice a day updates on our paving schedule, which has been fluid in terms of weather, these storms changing, so it takes time to clean and work in between raindrops. But that's still continuing and encourage residents to review our Facebook page as well for daily updates. And we ask for their patience as those things change. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay, any questions for Andy? Okay, hearing none. Katie, communications, please.
Council, I have a letter of interest from Jim Meadville for the Redevelopment Authority dated July 31st, 2019. I am honored to be considered for a position on the City of Meadville Redevelopment Authority Board of Directors, and I welcome this opportunity to contribute to the city's quality of life, growth, and economic development. Although I have no previous municipal authority board experience, I have participated in numerous board meetings throughout my professional career as a commercial banker, as well as my previous experience as a high school teacher. This experience has provided me with insights into board functions, operations, and responsibilities, as well as an appreciation for the important consequences associated with board-level decision-making. My formal education in accounting and business administration taught me the techniques to make logical and objective decisions. My business responsibilities include managing a branch office, managing a centralized mortgage processing department, and developing and maintaining commercial loan relationships. Additionally, I have experience in leadership, compliance, mergers and acquisitions, and financial analysis. I would be pleased to discuss my interest and qualifications with city council members, city staff, and RDA board members. In the event council extends an invitation to join the RDA board, please be assured that I will be an active and committed participant.
Okay. Council, I just want to give you an update. I attended the RDA board meeting last week, and actually some board members of RDA approached Jim for that position. And I've known Jim, I've had business dealings with Jim, and I think he'd be an excellent individual to be appointed. But I wanted you to know that RDA approached him, so.
I think he'd be an excellent choice.
Yeah.
Did we need a resolution or anything on that?
I think that, the board do that.
No, we make the appointments.
Or maybe, I so moved.
I'll second.
And just to be clear, Katie, it's a 5-year term ending.
May 1st of 2024.
Roll call.
Roa,
Aye.
Donahue,
Aye.
Battaglia,
Aye.
Mangela Bittner.
Aye.
Stearns.
Aye. We want to thank Jim for doing that. I think he's going to be an excellent assistant with the RDA board. Next communication.
Council, I have a letter from Jason Ramsey dated August 21st, 2019. Thank you, Mayor Stearns, members of Meadville City Council, and other participants in tonight's City Council meeting. Being stewards of city resources under the lens of a voting or often non-voting public can often be a thankless task, and I wanted to begin my communication that as a 14-year resident of Meadville and someone connected with the Meadville community for the past 25 years, I appreciate and respect the shared love and devotion that all of you have for our proud city. I apologize for not requesting to be on the agenda more formally, but until recently I believed things would unfold differently and planned to spend more time in thoughtful consideration prior to taking your time. However, I would like to call your attention to the current situation on Highland Avenue. I am a former resident of Highland Avenue. My 11-year-old son still resides on it 50% of his time, and I use it daily. First off, I want to thank you for addressing the condition of Highland Avenue between Sherman and Henry Streets. I suspect you've received complaints about the state of the road for some time, and of all the civic responsibilities one faces, road conditions are often the least thanked and the most complained about. Regarding the remaining work to be done, while City Council has made a plan to pave Highland Avenue, or at least a portion of it, I welcome clarification on the extent of the city's road plans or directions on how to find that plan. For various reasons, it is clear that current residents were unaware of the plans to remove the brick until nearly immediately before the paving work began. Tenants of houses were never informed by the city that any work was to occur until temporary parking restriction signs were put up. Homeowners were sent a letter indicating that brick surface repair would occur in May. I've spoken to several residents of the street between Henry and Randolph, including ones with young children, and their concerns align with my own. Paving over the brick street will change the character of a residential street that could become a dangerous alternate route for non-local traffic, in a way that other recently paved brick streets are not at risk of becoming. The street ends in a school zone that twice a day is full of children making their way home or to parents' cars. The street itself is populated by several young families with resident children. It also angles downhill in a way that already encourages an unsafe speed for those who appear to take no heed to what brick vibrations will do to a suspension while driving recklessly. Finally, paving the road virtually assures the city's need to continue to repave again and sooner than one would otherwise expect, given the relatively good condition of the road between Henry and Randolph. While I believe council has good intentions to manage the resources available to it in order to ensure the long-term usability of the street, I wonder if, based on my requests and out of respect to concerned citizens and residents, that it would be worth holding off on further paving until additional communication and interaction can be had with residents of the street between Henry and Randolph. The state of the street south of Henry is nothing like the portion that was recently paved and certainly will survive another winter, allowing time to discuss ramifications of changing the character of a residential street that could become a dangerous alternate route for non-local traffic in a way that other recently paved brick streets are not at risk of becoming. Recognizing how late in the stage this letter is likely to find council, if paving has already occurred, or if it is impossible to reschedule or change commitments made to third parties around paving, I would politely request that my son and I be given the chance at an upcoming council meeting to put forward several proposals we have considered to enhance the safety of Highland Avenue, given the change in its character. Thank you for your time and consideration in reading our letter.
Okay. Thank you, very nice written letter. Andy, give us an update where we're at. I received this information this morning and quickly responded by contacting Andy to have it put on the agenda because I wasn't sure what part of the construction started, where we were at in it. So Andy, give us an update.
So Council, you're aware that the Highland Avenue is under a contract for paving that was awarded on May 1st. I'm sorry, the curbs were awarded on May 1st. On May 15th was the award for Highland, Miller, and Ellicott Court, which were Brick Street conversions, planned conversions. That work has, as the letter indicates, the bricks were removed in the section between Sherman and Henry, approximately where the worst section of the base was. Bricks were removed and the base repaired, and then a base asphalt layer paved. And it is awaiting imminent pavement of that section and the lower brick section as planned in the paving contract. Was probably to have happened already. It's only the weather delay. It could happen as soon as tomorrow on the paving contract. I'll just remind council, I mean, there have been several public discussions about Highland Avenue and the conversion of brick, going back to 2017 when we initially prepared a paving plan as we were beginning a 3-year capital project that was approved by council at the end of December of 2017. And then at various touch points along the way this year, I think on January 16th we had done a preliminary discussion, and then on March 6th we did a proposed an overview of all the proposed paving in the city, and we had showed you all the sections of various sources of funding that were planned. So essentially, it's to be paved imminent, is the status.
The entire street from top to bottom?
No, from Randolph to East College Street.
And that's the section we're working on now. Because we talked about Ellicott Court, and I know that was taken off. We did quite a bit of changes, if I remember correctly. In the beginning, when we were talking about the paving this year, we were going to do Ellicott, and then we did not do Ellicott. I think we jumped up to Hillcrest. Was that this year?
No, that was last year.
That was last year. All right.
Ellicott was on the plan this year, has been removed because there has to be a water line, coordination with water line replacement. The Water Authority is working on their financing for that project, and so it's been removed from this year's paving schedule.
So when we discuss it, you know, we get a lot of this. So with Ellicott, are we paving over that, or are we putting the brick back down?
That was brick removal on Ellicott as well. Complete base repair, base asphalt, and asphalt overlay.
Okay. And we have not contacted the residents on Ellicott because it's not on our...
They would have received, so we have instituted...
I'm working backwards.
For the past several years, so we attempt now to send letters to, so on May 10th, there would have been letters sent to every property owner on Highland about the project, and indicated that curbs would be replaced first. Mr. Ramsey's letter does refers to the quote brick surface repair. That is probably not a good characterization, because we were fully intending through the planning of the past several years I've discussed to actually pave those sections of brick. So property owners were notified and encouraged to notify their tenants via letter on May 10th about the project, which was approximately a week before the curbing project was to begin. The paving, though, was released under a different schedule and is to happen imminently.
So we're going to go back in history a little bit. I don't know if council remembers who all was on council at the time. When they did some construction on Highland Avenue, the college did some building construction up there, and there was quite a bit of road damage done by the heavy equipment. You guys following when this happened? Maybe.
Well, it's a Y Center. It's got to be 15 years.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. When we discussed it then, they talked about blacktopping the entire hill, and then I think if I remember correctly, we decided we weren't going to do that. We were going to keep the top half brick.
Well, it's resources, right? So we're addressing the worst first. So the intent was, council's aware, Miller Avenue was in deplorable shape. The middle section of Highland Avenue, and then Ellicott was on that plan for conversion as well. Last year we did Lord Street, so we've, a direction of council, have been addressing the worst brick streets first. So we've not planned for the entire length of Highland, mostly just to steer resources in other directions.
Okay. So from my understanding, we're at a situation now where we already have the contract signed and we're going to have to blacktop it. I mean,
that has been the direction of council since 2017. Yes.
okay.
Well, I appreciate residents on brick streets that appreciate the aesthetics of a brick street, but to be realistic, it would be almost impossible to reconstruct brick streets because so much labor is involved. I hate to say it, but I don't think people can expect municipalities to continue to rebuild brick streets. It's just not realistic. As compared to paving it, probably 5 times as much.
It seems to me back in 17, we did a study, how long a paved street would last versus a brick.
I remember something about that,
Yeah, we did a study and it wasn't that much different.
there's no doubt brick streets will last longer. The
Yeah.
challenge with brick streets is
Right.
that you have to touch every brick. You have to
Yeah.
physically relay, and then in the cases where the base, in these streets where the base of the street is really destroyed, you have to pull those bricks, repair the base, and then replace. So it's the labor, and the preliminary math that I've done is that it's, in terms of just probably dollars, right, it's probably nearly 4 times as expensive to lay brick, to relay brick than as it is to pave. The life of a pavement, depending on volume and whatever, is 15 to 20 years. Sometimes on lower volume roads, you can stretch that out a little bit longer, but obviously the bricks have a much longer length. I would argue though, if we were gonna brick all of Highland, right, it would be 100% of our manpower for the entire construction season to do that. And when we get stormwater projects, all the other needs and infrastructure needs, and the need to invest in other streets in the city, it's just not practical with the resources that we have to re-brick.
Plus, you know, they require a certain amount of expensive maintenance. Because when bricks get wavy and, you know, one person has to pick them out one at a time, it isn't like you can take a machine and patch it. I've never been a real advocate of brick streets.
So give me the procedure that we do when we go, do the neighbors have an opportunity to voice their concern when we discuss these type of programs? I mean, other than just notice that we're gonna be doing work and that's it, I mean,
Other than the standard agenda being published and the topics on discussion and dialogue in public meetings, no, there's no specific outreach to each resident on each street that we intend to rehab, whether that's paving or re-bricking.
okay.
And for every person that tells me they love it, that we took away the brick streets, I find someone else that tells me that they love the brick streets. And then, but the people on Lord Street told me they just were thankful that we took care of that disaster that had become Lord, and same with that Irving. It was really a bad street, Catherine
Lord
Street.
was pretty bad. Lord was real bad.
I mean, there's some that were really bad, and I thought Highland was really, it was bad enough that I wouldn't drive on it.
No.
It is bad.
So our Public Works does the prep work, taking up the bricks, and then the pavers just do the surface coat, or do they do the undercoat also?
They're responsible for the actual base repair. So if that's soft spots, of excavating out, the contractor is responsible for excavating out soft material, replacing material, then a base coat, and then the top coat. And in fact, this year, I don't even know for certain whether it was our crews or whether it was the contractor that did the initial brick removal. I think it was I think that included in the contract as well, the initial brick removal by the contractor, so that they could adequately stage their own work.
So the brick that's already been taken out has had the subsurface put on it, ready for blacktop on top?
Correct.
So it'd be really difficult to put those bricks back if we had chose to do that. It'd be pretty
In
costly.
that case, right, everything that's been done so far and in that section, so essentially East College to Henry, I believe, has been removed and base put in.
So to answer your question, I think we're gonna have to continue where we're going, but I'm also interested to hear what you have for the future. I'm gonna go back in history real quick. Jim, I think it was right after you left council that Councilman Brian Hill, we had a policy in place at the time. Any brick street we took up, we had to replace it with another brick street somewhere. That was a policy back then, because it was a very, residents on brick streets really like them, and if you're in a neighborhood that has the brick streets now, there's class to that. I look at blacktop is there.
And there's different perspectives, as I think.
Yeah, I mean, depends where you live and how you want to do it. So to answer your question, I think we're stuck where we're at now because of the contracts are already there and the bricks have already been removed.
But to be fair, I think we did to have discussions about
Yeah.
this, and it was not practical to do all the paving we needed to do if we went with brick. Did we not have discussions
Yes.
on that?
Yes,
I
we
remember
did.
We
us
had a
having
long discussion on it. Yeah,
We had
did.
discussions on it. And the streets were in such deplorable condition with all the residents coming to us that in order to get them all on the paving schedule, we made that decision, is the way I remember it.
Yes.
Yeah, we had the same thing. It's just like I said, it wasn't realistic to you know, re-brick streets. It was just not in anybody's budget.
Well, let me ask you this, the section that we're doing now, is that gonna complete the project for a while? Or, I mean, do we have more paving
Up there,
up there on, coming?
We'll eventually probably return to Highland at some point. I mean, there are other needs. That's why we didn't do it this year. Or, I mean, there are other worst. We'll continue next to what we deem to be the next worst. No, we only had a 3-year capital plan. We're in year 2 of our 3-year plan. We will probably be able to augment that with the local federal aid route funding and some other resources that we've brought to the table, but resources are not endless, so we'll be back to council to discuss future capital needs after this 3-year paving plan is done.
So basically, we have 60 miles of streets in the city. This year, we're repairing or replacing 4.8 miles, which is roughly 1/12 of them. But if we were reconstructing brick streets with brick streets, we'd maybe be able to do 1 mile. Is that pretty much?
By the napkin math that I was reviewing today, yeah, that's a approximate.
And they may last 60 years, rather than 50.
I don't think they last as long because the trucks are so big.
Yeah, I don't, yeah.
It costs you 4 times as much to do them, even if they only last 15 years, it's still,
Yeah, but it's the same amount.
yeah.
You got it. That's just not very realistic anymore.
Okay.
They'd have to last 60 years to break even, and I don't think they could go 60 years without any significant maintenance.
Jason, I think you kind of heard where we're at with it. Unfortunately, with what we've already done, we're not reversing it back.
Well, I don't think we could if we wanted to, you
Oh,
know.
I think it'd be costly, but,
Well, it would be, we know that.
yeah.
What's your suggestions?
Well, I was actually gonna just make sure, because it sounds like something got misunderstood, the brick from College to Henry has been removed and been paved. The brick from Henry south to Randolph has not yet been removed. And so the point of my letter was not to necessarily advocate for brick streets, but to point out that communication didn't happen effectively. And so rather than moving ahead without fully communicating to residents, that we simply pause until next year to give time for more careful thought and consideration out of respect for residents.
Andy, is that being done, the other part of it, this year?
The lower, all get paved, so we will pave the lower section that still remains brick right this minute, could be paved tomorrow, is the base.
So it's already under contract?
It's already under contract. We will, the intent was to pave then over that base brick up to East College from Randolph, pave over the existing brick in that section, and then the section's been removed already and the base layer done, and continue up to East College.
So certainly any suggestions you have for safety would certainly be welcome.
I think if that is welcome, I would prefer some time to prepare them. We'd certainly be
Absolutely,
glad
you
to
should
share
prepare
about
them,
that.
get them to him to get to him.
Yeah. Any other thing you'd like to add?
So thank you.
Jason, thank you for bringing that to us.
Thank you.
Council, any other questions?
Thank you for coming.
Okay, old business. I have nothing under old. New business, A, ordinance, first and second readings, solicitor and retail code.
Before you do that, Council, we've made some changes to, I think when we had sent out a new draft, and so I'll defer to council whether you want to consider this draft under first and second reading, or you just want to have continued discussion. We had, actually it was after an article that the Tribune published after the last meeting, as we've had a couple of continued discussions on this. Someone in the public raised a question about how this ordinance would impact, say, vendors in the downtown mall, like seasonally at Christmas time, that's set up in the lobby and hallways of the downtown mall. How it might impact a craft show, say a nonprofit has a second district school, or I'm making this up, we'll have a fundraiser and they'll hold a craft show on a Saturday and have multiple vendors to raise money. And this, or the prior draft ordinance that we were considering, would consider all those situations. We were regulating transient retailers in public and private space, and under that prior draft that we've been discussing, that we would have they would have to apply for a permit and be subject to the terms of the ordinance. At a staff level, we were discussing and had an internal debate whether we need to consider, do we need to regulate transient retailers on private property? And I'm not talking solicitors, I'm only talking in this case about transient retailers, where private property owners have other means of perhaps dealing with transient retailers. So the downtown mall, by presumably hosting and having agreements with those vendors, presumably are responsible, right, for their vending activity, could remove a vendor if appropriate. And our ability to regulate that, and we're also looking at staff resources, our ability to handle events like that and permanent events like that. And so this draft that's before you tonight essentially only attempts to regulate transient retailers in the public right-of-way or public space.
Can I
Councilman
muddy
Rowe.
the waters on this a little bit?
Yep.
I believe if you look at a map of the downtown mall, the outside corridor and a portion of that lobby are still technically considered Chestnut Street. They're under roof, but they are still technically considered Chestnut Street. So you'd have an issue of definition
I
here.
thought we dealt with that.
Council vacated
That was
that
the
years
case.
ago.
Did you?
Previously,
Yeah.
just recently, in the last
Recently, 10 years.
10 years, okay, that changed. Historically, you're correct, the lobby was public right of way,
Right.
yes.
So that's kind of a fundamental change in the draft that's before you tonight, is that this draft only would then regulate transient retailers in the public right of way.
So that would include like those booksellers at the college?
Yes.
Yes. Now, if the college wanted to host a transient
campus.
bookseller buyer on campus, they
That's
could choose to do that, and this ordinance would not regulate them in this draft. So that's the fundamental change.
Then there was only one minor change. Previously, we had accepted from the requirement of applying for a permit entities, nonprofit charitable entities that registered. There's a law in Pennsylvania, the Solicitation of Charitable Funds Act. What I hadn't realized was within that law, there's certain exceptions for certain nonprofits. So we just follow that language through. So if you're a 501c3 that doesn't have to register pursuant to that, you don't have to get a permit either. And that just makes sense.
Where's that at?
That's in under 313.05B. And that only relates to solicitors. So transient retailers in the public right of way, they're gonna have to get a permit.
So when they apply for a permit, let's talk about the food trucks. When they apply for a permit, we no longer do food inspections. Do they still have to have some type of a food inspection? And is that done by the Department of Agriculture still? So I know we have the office, the regional office is over at Avtex, or the old Avtex. Are they the ones that do the inspection? Okay.
So this ordinance would require, so as a standards under section 313.010 standards, subsection B, letter H, it says any mobile food unit shall be properly licensed and inspected under the applicable Commonwealth retail food facility laws and regulations, and properly licensed and registered under the Commonwealth traffic laws and regulations. And to Councilman Battaglia's comment, I think last time, we've added as well as applicable Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board requirements. So they would have to be properly licensed to be selling beer, if that was what
And they have to have all that together when they come to get the permit from us,
we would
correct?
require proof that they're licensed
Yes.
under the application process.
All right.
If I have an auction at my home and the auctioneer's trailer and the food concession are in my yard, they don't need a permit. But if they're on the street or in the right of way, they do.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's another good example that we had not contemplated in Councilman Roa. We beat this up quite a bit at a staff level, and
You're
that's,
thinking about
we
food
tried to
truck?
imagine every scenario, and that's not one we came up with.
Well,
So,
here's another one,
well, come on.
and this happens a lot, is portable toilets. You know, I mean, that as a business.
But they're
And I know we have regulations that they can't be in rights of way, but they are. quite often.
But they are soliciting.
Well, I could,
Well, yeah, but they're getting paid.
I could have fun with this one.
Yeah. I mean, that Powell's
What
has
goes
a
in
charge
comes
to
out.
set those there on our property. So, do we have,
They're not selling goods or wares, though?
And they're making deposits.
okay,
They would just pass those.
I'm
costs
sorry, I couldn't help
on.
myself on that.
Right, and
Costs
that's,
would just be passed on to the.
and some of those examples, right, I mean, we've already exempted from permitting, so like a Thunder in the City event where where we've issued a public assembly
Yeah.
permit, and so there wouldn't be a need, so all those vendors would not have to apply under transient retail. I'm just trying to think of other instances where portable toilets are placed in the public right, maybe construction.
yeah, that's what I was
temporary
thinking, construction
site.
jobs, they're always in the rights of way, but I don't know. I know they're not permitted, but when they are there, we don't have any mechanism to either charge them to be there or make them get them out of there.
Not under this ordinance.
Yeah.
I don't know if we regulate them otherwise during construction. I mean, I know we issue parking permits for contractors, but
I'm not aware of too many in the rights of way. If they're blocking a sidewalk or something, or a street or something, definitely tell them to get it out of there. I mean, as far as public safety is
Yeah.
concerned, but, yeah, but not otherwise, no.
I think for the public, the nuisance is people just showing up at their house whenever, because you have things such as the people in Penelec and gas that want to sell their suppliers. And so when the little girls used to come in and sell Girl Scout cookies, or the boys would sell, the neighbors didn't mind that. The people that are telling me they're annoyed are the people that are showing up at their house, bothering grandma or their great aunt, and getting them to switch a supplier, and then they're offended because now they can't get out of a contract and it's costing them hundreds of dollars, and they're on a fixed income. So those are the people that shouldn't be annoyed by this. And in this day and age, when you have that kind of thing, we have to be cognizant of that.
Yeah.
Things like that, and the food trucks that are now all over. I mean, those are the kinds of things we want to avoid, not really hurting anyone that's trying to, nonprofit that's trying to,
Girl Scouts.
yeah. But I know people that don't go to their door now, because
No, I
they
don't
don't know who these people are. And
You're right, and these activities were all regulated previously for decades by the city. What we really did is just streamline an ordinance which didn't make sense anymore. It was really outdated.
when was this last done?
it was,
1928 or something?
1940.
So
Yeah,
it's probably
like
time that we
1940.
do it, and we can amend it if we need to.
Yes.
Okay, I don't think we should wait any longer, I mean, it's been long enough. But I can see where there's a lot of questions because of it.
so we had a lot of discussion before there was any motion or second, but if you're comfortable with really that structural change of no longer regulating transient retailers on private property, then I
Is the
guess
fee schedule gonna be separate?
it is separate
Okay, then I
discussion
would make a
resolution.
motion to have a reading.
Somebody make a motion.
I so moved, Your Honor.
Do you why don't you read the summary,
Oh.
Katie, and then we'll.
Yeah.
Of
The
the,
ordinance, so it's just that summary paragraph that I've an ordinance of the city of Meadville, and just
Okay.
that bolded paragraph.
an ordinance of the city of Meadville, Crawford County, Pennsylvania, to rescind and reenact Article 313, peddlers, hucksters, and solicitors of the Meadville Municipal Code of the city of Meadville, to rename the article solicitors and transient retailers, to incorporate other changes to such code, and to repeal Article 317, transient retail merchants.
Okay, I already had a motion, a second, any discussion?
Did you get the motion in second? Who made it?
I believe it was Nancy and Jim.
Well
Initially,
done.
yeah. I think we've had discussion.
Yep. Roll call.
Roa,
Aye.
Donahue,
Aye.
Battaglia,
All right.
Mangela Bittner.
Aye.
Stearns.
Aye. I just have to share.
Are we gonna have second reading?
Yeah, we'll do second reading as well.
Can you read it again, or can I just?
You
make
can
the
just do the
motion?
second.
All right, I'll make the motion,
Second?
second reading.
Second, Your Honor.
Okay. Roll call.
Roa,
Aye.
Donahue,
Aye.
Battaglia,
All right.
Mangela Bittner.
Aye.
Stearns.
Aye.
Are you gonna do the,
Yeah, so in terms of just discussion, not proposing any action on this, the next page then would be, so we've worked, and we've largely discussed these. prior to this date too, but fee schedules related to then permitting for transient retailers, mobile food units, and solicitors. The only one that we hadn't discussed really was an annual fee. And so you'll see there, I think we had shared this information with council, the rationale for them, tried to base them on actual time estimates of staff review and approval. I'll be honest with you, the annual fees are a little bit of a, if you annualize the daily or monthly fee would be a multi-$1,000 fee that probably is silly, frankly, so we've tried to pick something reasonable and rational. The it's interesting to me, and when I look at mobile food trucks, 2018 we had several. We had Hawks, we had Smoky Martins in the past, really before they had their permanent retail location. I'm not aware of anyone this summer that has applied for and received a permit for food truck this summer.
Not even during Thunder in the City?
Well, that's not.
We've not managed them during Thunder in the City, but outside of Hawks Grocery did not seek a permit this year.
Firehouse was the only one.
And did they do it as part of
It was in coordination
with the summer concert series? But we hadn't had anyone this year oddly request a permit for a weekday mobile food vendor. So I'm just indicating I don't think the pressure is great. Just as we consider the fee structure.
Well, that, like when Smoky Martins was here, that would be an annual kind of thing? Somebody did
If
that?
he chose.
Yeah.
I mean, if he wanted to apply for an annual permit and
One of the things that we discussed, especially with the food trucks, were their presence around the other restaurants. If you remember correctly, the other restaurants were concerned about their being able to bring a food truck in for just a few dollars a day, making a lot of revenue, and then the restaurant down the street suffered from that. So by these numbers I see, they seem to be pretty...
And we sought that feedback and really got very little feedback. And in fact, it was Voodoo that had said that they would prefer not to have as many restrictions in terms of space, distance from other restaurants or whatnot. But I think to your point is the fee schedule is maybe potentially more competitive. Is that?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking
Have we
at.
researched this with other cities to see what kind of fees they charge?
So the city of Erie does one flat annual fee for food trucks, and it's only $200 a year. And that permits them to set up wherever they want, whatever public right of way within the city.
They're not assigned any... I don't know if I
I'm sure they would have to identify as part of the approval process, but.
Well, that's not practical here, is it? Limited space.
No, that's practical, that's for sure.
We eliminated the radius requirement, where previous versions of the ordinance had set a radius where they could not locate within, in proximity to a restaurant. We eliminated that, so we loosened the restriction, but it sounds like our fee might be healthier than Erie's, for example.
So my question is like, I might put you on the spot here for a second. Second Saturdays, do you guys have food trucks involved? And approximately how many, just curious?
Anywhere from 1 to 3.
Are they for nonprofits, or they?
They are for-profit, but the entity that has the permit to use the right-of-way is a nonprofit,
Okay.
like Thunder in the City. So I don't know.
So under the ordinance that you've done first and second, they would be exempt from
They're
applying for a
Okay,
transient
all right.
retail because they're participating in an event that was otherwise permitted by the city.
Because when you're trying to bring entertainment,
They're
you don't
exempt.
want to slap somebody for trying to do something good for the community.
Well, Erie's a little bigger than us, so
Yeah.
maybe we should be checking some smaller communities and hold off on, I don't want to be too expensive
And
here.
each parking, if they needed 3 spaces, we just add another $10 onto the fee.
Does anybody check Warren County, the city of Warren?
What's his-
We've done that, so, I mean, we can provide a table, right, of the fee schedules that we've reviewed, so we'll be glad to do that. The parking fee, we've essentially built into this rate, I believe.
2 spaces.
2 spaces.
Okay.
Well, it's a lot easier to amend the fee schedule.
Right.
Well, we
yes,
haven't
yes.
adopted it yet, so
Right.
Yeah.
let's just get some more.
Yeah, but I mean, if we adopted it and found out it was
Yeah.
unreasonable, we could just
But before we even do it, at
Yeah.
least we should be checking with something our own.
comparable cities.
You know, Franklin, when you and I went down and met down with the city manager in Franklin, they might be someone we can touch base.
I think we have all that research, we just, we don't have it prepared in front of
I
me, so we
wouldn't
can
prepare
put
it.
that together. Until there's third and final reading on the ordinance anyhow, we don't,
You have time for that?
we've got time to review it further.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, C, discussion, draft ordinance amending traffic code. Katie? Or Andy?
So this is literally just a draft for discussion, not ready for prime time tonight. So Gary, Lizzie, do you want to lead that? This is obviously in relation to our prior discussions of closing a portion of Doty Avenue between North Main and Laird.
So council, you received information at least one prior meeting regarding Dowdy Road Avenue, excuse me. Initially, I had given the opinion that I thought we could do it by resolution, but staff alerted me that in our traffic code, we actually have to handle this by amendment, the way our current traffic code reads. And it also stylistically fits with our ordinance. So what this will do is we'll start with Dowdy Avenue, this portion of it that we're going to be closing, and this will provide the mechanism for future closures if we ever have one. It'll get inserted into a chart, just like if you remember a few years ago, we changed, I think it was center, a portion of center, one-way, directional. Those are also listed like this is listed. So if streets are periodically closed, they'll go on the list, like we do with other traffic regulations.
And the street will be closed, but we are not abandoning the right-of-way.
Correct.
Does that need to be clarified in an ordinance?
That's why we are doing it this way, because we're not vacating.
Okay.
Because we can't vacate it with the infrastructure that's there. So yes, you're right.
Thank you.
So the ability to get to that, there's an electric, something out the bottom of the hill, I can't remember what,
Yeah.
electric
There
or
is,
gas?
there is. So in discussions with Nathan Zazula, Public Works Director, he's not positive what the permanent method will be to allow the utilities access, but he's gonna work with them. Initially, it's gonna be, I think, concrete enclosures, but later on, there'll be a gate where they can access to maintain their facilities that are
It
there.
seemed like it'd be a lot safer from the residential side than North Main Street, to me.
So it'll be closed to vehicular and pedestrian traffic completely.
To your point though, Jim, we probably could add in one of the whereas sections, desires to permanently close but not
But not
vacate.
vacate.
Right.
Yeah, so we could add that as a whereas clause, at least to
It's
document
gonna
it.
prevent arguments 30 years from now.
That's a good point.
Good catch. Any other discussion? Resolution authorizing signature of City of Meadville between Mark and Joyce Sherry. Okay, Katie, you're on this time.
Resolved by the Council of the City of Meadville that the attached agreement is hereby approved and adopted substantially in the form attached hereto, as and for a binding and effective agreement of the City of Meadville in accord with its terms, and the mayor, controller, and the city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to execute and to attest such copies of the attached agreement in the manner required by law, as may be reasonably required for the purposes of the parties thereto.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Andy?
So Council, this is, Gary's reviewed this easement agreement. It's probably very similar to the prior easement agreements we've had related to stormwater infrastructure. The Sherrys have reviewed it as well and given their verbal sign off. And as Council's aware, we've done a number of these where either as we're beginning to improve stormwater infrastructure in places where we've not historically had easements to either access a weir or to access the improvement or make an improvement, we've been attempting to do that. In this case, and the one that follows actually sort of work together in our stormwater system. And I think the exhibits show this. In this case, the Sherrys have been a very cooperative landowner in providing city access through their property to a weir that is on an adjacent property upstream, the West Groves property that we'll consider next. easement agreement just provides us access to and conditions for access that weir and also maintain our stormwater pipe.
Is there a restoration clause?
Yes.
Yes.
I can't,
There's definitely a restoration requirement. I just want to make sure it is in here.
Shall restore at 6 at the last sentence. Upon completion of the grantee shall restore the grade to a unit.
okay, thank you.
6 at the last sentence.
Yes.
Yeah. So in this instance, I wish to thank the Sherrys not only for their providing us access, right, as a friendly landowner. I mean, it's beneficial to them that we obviously maintain that weir, but they're planning to sell the property, and we're aiding us in sort of getting this in line before the property transfers, so that we can formally record the easement.
Any other questions, comments? Roll call?
Roa,
Aye?
Donahue,
Aye.
Battaglia,
All right,
Mangela Bittner.
Aye.
Sturs.
Aye. Resolution authorizing signature between the city of Meadville and Ronald and Vicky West and Tim and Rosemary Grove stormwater. Katie?
Resolved by the council of the city of Meadville that the attached agreement is hereby approved and adopted substantially in the form attached hereto, as and for a binding and effective agreement of the city of Meadville in accord with its terms, and the mayor, controller, and the city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to execute and to attest such copies of the attached agreement in the manner required by law as may be reasonably required for the purposes of the parties thereto.
Motion, please.
so moved, Your Honor.
I'll second.
Discussion, Andy?
This is very similar in the template form of the agreement that you've just approved. The Groves and West have had this approved by their legal counsel. This is actually a parcel where homeowners on either side jointly own the center parcel through which the stormwater infrastructure passes. Again, they've been very cooperative in providing the city access, and the goal here is just to simply formalize access to the weir and for maintenance of the stormwater infrastructure on their property.
Any
That,
questions?
that stormwater line continues below Washington Street? Looks like there's more.
Yes, continues through other private property downstream that we've not addressed through easements
Okay,
yet.
the next question.
Down to North Street, then continues across school district property, for which we also do not have an easement for, into Mill Run.
Any other questions for Andy? Roll call?
Roa,
Aye?
Donahue,
Aye.
Battaglia.
Aye.
Mangela Bittner.
Aye.
Stearns.
Aye. Before we have council member statement, Andy, do you want to give a quick
Oh, sure. And
update? You guys have this?
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Surprise, Katie included something. This is, I distributed this in council packets. This is actually just a poster on Monday, September 23rd, on the campus of Allegheny College at 7 p.m. in the art gallery. There's going to be a presentation by Christian Lapie. He's the international sculptor who, in theme, in fact, the top picture of this poster you see are pictures of his sculptures in the roundabout in theme. These are actually placed in multiple places internationally, in France and other locations. And there had been some discussion, I think we brought this to council some months ago, about potential interest. Would we have replica or similar statues here as a symbol of our sister city relation with theme? So Christian Lapie will actually be in Chicago in September for an international art exposition, and is going to make a side trip to Meadville along with city manager Denis Cava, and he's giving a lecture on campus, and we'll be visiting with city officials about the possibility of that project in the future. So members of the public and council are invited to that event on the 23rd of September to learn about his work.
And Deneen's going to be here for a few days, correct?
Denis Cava, the city manager, will be here from like Sunday to Thursday of that same week visiting Meadville. And we're working on a sort of an itinerary with council and other members of the public to host him.
Where's that gallery? Wanna call it?
It's in the campus center.
Okay.
So when you enter what I consider the main doors of the campus center, is to the right, is where the art department is in the gallery, sort of down a hall. And there actually is an opening to the gallery right off of the front plaza as well.
Okay. Any questions, Randy, on that? With that, John, I'll start with you tonight, your council member statement.
I just want to reiterate my appreciation for the public works people that cleared. I had a lot of damage on my properties over the Sunday storm, and I was actually up in Canada when it happened, and by the time I got home, the street had been cleared off, and you definitely could tell something happened, but it took about 24 hours to get the electric back on, which was not something I was happy about, but not something you can't do anything about. But I do appreciate all the work that the city employees did, both the fire department and the public works people, in clearing that mess up. So I think that's nothing coming up. That's all I think. I wanted to make sure everybody knew about that housing thing at the emergency services building. There's going to be a lot of interesting issues out of that, and maybe not to anybody but me.
And the County Planning Commission staff is interested in meeting with council on digging in a little bit deeper into some of those numbers and some initiatives that might come out of that. So maybe we'll have a future discussion.
The study, if you guys haven't looked at it, it identifies a lot of the issues that we have with housing in central Crawford County, and probably the rest of the county. I didn't read that part, but it's some of the stuff is real obvious that we've known about for 40, 50 years, and some of it you never gave much thought to, and explains why we have some of the issues that we have. But anyway, looking forward to that. So that's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay. Sean?
I just, first of all, thank you, Jason and Eli, for coming down tonight. I'm sorry we couldn't help you with, but we did talk about quite a bit, and it's just certain things have to go. But I'd be interested in what you have for. There's a lot of kids there in the mornings and in the afternoons. A lot of people. I mean, it's a really busy area. The other thing, the fairs have been going on. It's very, very muddy. I was there the other night and seen the rain all day again today. They're running shuttles from the high school and from the church there on Leslie Road. If you go, it'd be easier to park there. And I mean, the ruts, unless you have four-wheel drive, the ruts in the parking lots are unbelievable. And they've tried to fix them, and they're still not really getting anywhere. But the other thing I thought was interesting is they moved the rides. And the rides are down by gate 1 now, and there's a lot more rides. It seemed like a lot. I don't know what it cost, but as my kids grew up and I don't care what it costs anymore. I was just glad to see it was $5 to get in now instead of $8. And but there's a lot going on up there. It was a really nice time the other night. September 14th, we're having a tire collection at the fairgrounds again, and it doesn't matter about the rain because we're going to just use the main roads. But if you have tires you want to get rid of, they're $2 a piece. It keeps going up every year, and it's just an opportunity to get rid of them. It's every other year the council of governments does this. And at afternoon on that same day, there's a wine and brew walk here in the city, and it's really well attended, and it's a pretty neat event, and it's the whole downtown, and there'll be a lot of people. I think it was like 700 to one time I went.
Wow, good.
So there's a lot going on. High school football starts Friday.
You're going to give us reports
I
on it?
think Meadville is away. I'm pretty sure they're away. They're at Mercyhurst, but our first home game's the following week against Conneaut Lake. That's all. I'll give you a report on the game.
Yeah, you do that, because
I know, did you
know how
it's like you're really there.
I'm really into sports, right?
I know.
Nancy?
I want to thank you both for coming. We do like to hear your concerns. We do care. And I also want to thank, I think it was and we had meetings every night last week. Tuesday, we had the AP banquet.
Yes.
We really thank them for what they do. They're a great bunch of guys. They're always out there. They were out there again. And I want to thank the police and the fire and the Nathan and his public works crew for a great job. Thank you.
Jim, it's been said before, again, we appreciate you coming, being part of the process. And even though it's been said, we have to thank Public Works, Fire, Police, the Auxiliary Police again because of the phenomenal job that they do, and our staff for making sure that everything is deployed and handled expeditiously. Thanks again.
Glad to have you here tonight. Wear your pin proudly of the city of Meadville. Andy, if you could, with staff, let us know as soon as possible about the collection of the wood. I think that's going to be really helpful for our residents. On a personal note, I want to thank council, staff, and friends and neighbors that sent notices to me with my sister's passing. We appreciate that. With that, I'll call for adjournment. You can turn your cell phones back on.
To executive session, Your Honor, personnel and real estate.
Okay?
Motion to adjourn?
Yep. Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Roa,
Aye.
Donahue,
Aye.
Battaglia.
Aye.
Mangela Bittner.
Aye.
Stearns.
Aye. We're adjourned to executive session.
Okay.